How's everyone doing today? Thanks for chiming in. This is Nathan Russell with an Independent, Ohio. I want to talk a little bit today about human rights, human dignity. So the unions, there's a union that's striking. There's another non-union that is not striking, but by all means, I talked to a couple of them a year ago at Snow Trails that worked at one of the distribution places up in Cleveland. So I know. And they had a baby too. Other than that, let's go ahead and get into this. As you can see here, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men on the planet, and you can see his dildo that he finally got to use just the other week. So he's made a third of his wealth since COVID. Some of that was our own government passing bills that gave him $10 trillion. So he could actually use his dildo. His workers have been striking or trying to start a union. So they're walking off the job, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different things. People talk about having to pee in a soda bottle type stupid. They don't have time to go use the restroom, and then most of the time, depends on where you're at, the break room is all the way on the other side of the facility, so there goes your whole break walking so you can eat. So through COVID, he made a third of his wealth, and so the numbers are coming in. He could give all of his workers a $100,000 bonus, and he would be where he was at pre-COVID. And by all means, I ain't saying $100,000 to every worker, but at least 50,000. Shucks, man, I could not imagine working there. I'm too old, fortunately enough. I can't run that hustle. I got a bad hip, and I worked myself to death lifting metal. So, these are things that the wealthiest people on the planet that control a lot are doing. Like, just robbing us. They don't care about us at all. So right here is the workers fighting for a union. They put up a good fight. The fight is not over. I have no doubt in my mind the fight is not over for Amazon workers. All they want is to be treated with some dignity, with respect. Because if it wasn't for them, Bezos wouldn't have all this money. So, let's try to engage in trying to learn about that, because at the end of the day, we have Amazon here in Ohio. Just because our Ohio people aren't necessarily striking, I hope they're talking about it. So right here, 1,100 Alabamian coal miners on strike, which I didn't even know they were mining for coal down there. I know Virginia, West Virginia, definitely, and I'll be a redneck too. But at the end of the day, they're striking, putting up a good fight. Definitely when you have numbers like 1,100 in one facility. So they literally, a couple years ago, I think 2016, their company said that we have to file bankruptcy. So for them to keep their jobs, they lost, what was it, about an equivalent of $8 per hour off of their hourly wages. And they still went back to work. Like, we're here for the company, we're here for you, you guys, whatever. So now a company called BlackRock, they ended up buying the business and doing different things. Now it's supposedly making profit. So the way they're awarding the money is 1/4, just the management staff got a $30,000 bonus. $30,000 to just a couple people in the office that don't do no real work. So that set these folks off. They're fighting about that. They want their $8 an hour back. And by all means, if I was there, I will be like, well, hold on a second. What about my retro? Like, this was just me loaning them the 4 years it took for us to make a profit. I want that money back. So, let's try to learn as much about them, try to support them, because they're fighting for their dignity, for their life. It's pretty amazing how these capitalists are doing things right now. So, right here, Frito-Lay. I forget where it was, but you could Google it, Frito-Lay strike. You could see there's a lot of people set up and everything. I listened to a man talk about like his experience there, and he's been there for 25 years, I think. He literally was talking about how people are losing their families, like getting divorced because of their job. There's something called a suicide shift. I learned a little bit about that from some of these medics that I talked to, them and firefighters. A suicide shift. They would literally make these people go into work at like 7 o'clock in the morning. You gotta be there at 7. Then you're supposed to get off at 3. But they make mandatory you 4 more hours. So then you work till 7. And then you're told that you have to come back in the following day at 3 in the morning. So that is suicide. They literally had a fellow coworker drop dead online, and how the management and everybody handled that is some people moved her out of the way, and somebody else came in and kept the machine running. So, those are things that happen at real jobs. I would like to tell you about the union experience that I encountered back at a very young age, 19 or 20. So I started waiting tables at a place called the Brown Derby Roadhouse back in 1998-ish. Uh, I was waiting on a table of union workers from a company called AK Steel. They basically shut most of it down. They have a small spot still here in Mansfield, but that was a major source of income and a lot of workers in my community. I'm waiting on them. They seemed happy. They're laughing and talking. It was like a party of 10. And, I do my thing, get their drinks or whatever. And throughout the meal, I heard them talking about a car, like blowing up, So finally, I was like, what are you guys talking about? Somebody's car blew up like it wasn't yours, right? And they were like, oh no, it was Scabs. So I'm like, Scab, because I know that they're striking and all this other mumbo jumbo. I kind of can hear them talking while I'm doing my job. So I was like, oh, wow. So a couple of them proceeded on telling me how they seen the Scabs coming in on a bus. So they decided to follow the bus to the drop-off point. And then, I guess the next day or a couple days or whatever, they ended up going there and blowing one of their cars up. So, to me, it's kind of funny what we do to each other. Because if you can't laugh about that, you should only fucking cry. But as a 19, 20-year-old kid, I took that in. I learned a couple lessons. Number one, I ain't never gonna be no scab. Number two, I do not want to work within a facility that functions certain ways to make us treat each other that way. At the end of the day, man, that guy had to feed his family too, and he blew his car. I would rather us start addressing the people who cause these issues. By all means, we are more intelligent than to be doing that stuff today. So, I worked personally for a union. It was years ago. It was my first factory job at Mansfield Plumbing. Had no problems. That was back when my son was born. They covered all my hospital obligations, and I took my son home from the hospital. He was mine. Not very many men can say that. But I meet more and more men with full custody of their kids. Good job. So I did have an issue with the union. The union did not fight for me. But when it comes to this worker issue, it does not matter whether you're union or non-union. These people are willing to work us till we die, and they do not care. You are not on their spreadsheet. They're looking at the bottom line. We need to be able to work together. Utilize ideas. So that way, when things get bad in our state, and by all means, it's coming. I talked to a young lady working at a gas station. the truckers try to like harass her, give her crap, make her job hard, start complaining like her job isn't hard, right? About whatever. So she says she looked at one. She's like, hey man, like, it's not our problem. We go check the bathrooms every chance we can get. But we should talk about your mom and how she taught you how to not, how you folks to not be able to pee politely, right? Because the bathrooms are full. She tells me that she has to go out in the lawn because truckers will pee in plastic bottles or whatever and toss them, cups, and toss them out in the lawn instead of even taking it and throwing it in the trash can at least. So she went off on one, which is cool. You need to tell people, like, when they're whining and complaining, how it is. Like, sorry, we do our best. Most of us do. But there's not enough of us, and I believe that's a system type of issue. The different systems that these businesses have been implementing through whatever we're doing, supposedly saying it's easier, but it's not. It takes like more people. Way more people get a job done. And at the end of the day, we still know we're not getting paid what we're worth. So, yeah, I want to be part of holding these politicians' feet to the fire, making them fight for us, especially when it comes to workers' rights, because I'm broke down. I'm tired. I cannot work in another factory again. But what I can tell you, just like you've been watching this video, if you're still with me, I learned how to do a lot. But my hands don't work really anymore. I'm getting carpal tunnel. So, and then I got a bad hip. I lifted a lot of metal. So, and just lifted a lot of stuff like this. So thank you very much for chiming in. Hope you got something. If I enlightened you, touched you, by all means, leave a comment, like, share. Even though you might not like this, one of your friends might totally understand. So let's get together with an independent Ohio. Let's start fighting for our rights, making our voices heard. Thank you, and y'all have a great night.